Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Center Court. We have a special panel for you today. I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. I'm the founder and editor-in-chief, and I have three representatives from three great business schools with me today to talk about this topic, developing the next generation of business leaders. You know, you may think that business school is about accounting and finance and marketing and strategy and operations. But in fact, business school is really about leadership and developing people to be effective throughout their careers, no matter what discipline they ultimately enter, or no matter what job they have. And we're going to talk about how business schools do that in the context of three terrific MBA programs. From Notre Dame, the Mendoza School, we have Joe Sweeney, the academic director of MBA programs, who also is an assistant teaching professor. From Florida, Warrington, we have a good old friend, Naz Eringut, the director of admissions. Naz washed her hair for us, so it looks especially good. And from Indiana, Kelley, at Indiana University, the Kelley School of Business, we have Rebecca Cook, executive director of Kelley Career Services. So let's start with this. Obviously, it's important for an MBA program to incorporate practical, hands-on learning experiences into the program to prepare the next generation of business leaders. How do you do that at Florida?
Yeah, thank you, John. And thank you for having us here today. It's so great to be on this panel. You know, I think that as you're thinking about an MBA, as you said, so often people think about the actual skill set that they're going to increase their business acumen, learn about finance and accounting and supply chain and all those things. But more specifically, all of our MBA programs, both our 2-year and our 1-year programs, really focus on kind of how you can get hands-on experience through three big categories. We have experiential learning, and that's things such as global immersion experiences or case competitions. We have our business career coaches, right, that kind of help you kind of navigate how you're connecting what you're learning in the classroom to what future employers are looking to kind of acquire as new talent acquisition, right? And then finally, I think something that we put a lot of focus on is that personal and professional development. And so things such as personal and professional development, actually, we think of that in two big categories. We have the technical skill sets as well as, the leadership skill sets. And so we offer things such as PowerPoint, Excel training, Lean Six Sigma, Scrum Master, all of these things to help with project management. But also then we have to think about what are some other leadership qualities such as ethical leadership, storytelling, negotiation, all of those types of things that will really help round out that next generation of business leaders.
Yeah, all good stuff. And Rebecca, experiential learning at Kelley.
Give us a lot. Sure, a lot of the same things that Naz just said, but some of the big ones within our full-time MBA program would be our global immersions called Globase, where we do global consulting for about 7 weeks or so before, during the first 7 weeks of the second semester of the first year. And students work with global clients, and then they go in country for a couple of weeks. So it's a really cool opportunity that students really find life-changing. So I think you think differently when you're consulting with somebody kind of across the globe, and then when you actually see it, feel it, touch it, live it, it definitely makes an impact. Also at Kelley, we have things called academies, which are focus areas during our first year, and there's 6 of them. And each of the academies focus on or have projects that relate to them in the second semester of their first year. So students are very involved with real life projects, depending on their different area of interest, such as business marketing, consulting, et cetera. So really some cool opportunities there. But in answer overall to your question, I mean, I think it's the experiential learning that brings all the academic learning to life and showcases how you can actually make a difference and what you can change and how you implement all those skill sets that you've learned.
What kind of countries have you done global immersions in recently?
All sorts of fun ones. Well, it's a little different now than prior to the pandemic, but we were just down in Peru. We've Thailand, Indonesia, Botswana, Historically, been to China numerous times, kind of all over.
And I know that students more often than not work for nonprofit type organizations on these global immersions, right?
Right. It's typically nonprofits, all different kinds of industries. Occasionally we'll have a for-profit industry, but it's pretty rare. But we've worked with restaurants, we've worked with a monkey sanctuary, which was kind of cool, something different. Is really in Thailand. We worked with some people, women who were building out businesses to better empower themselves. So lots of just different cool opportunities, and the students get to choose which country they're interested in.
Yeah. Joe, obviously the action learning type project or the experiential learning opportunity with an assignment from a company or an organization is critical to integrate a lot of the disciplinary kind of knowledge that you get in accounting, marketing, and so forth. How do you do that at Notre Dame?
Yeah, so there's a variety of ways that we think about it here. As I think about experiential learning, there's a couple of different components that you can think about. You can think about application, you can think about experiences that are away from campus, you can think about something that happens through partnership, and you can think about activities that are service related. And so as we think about experiential learning here, we've created a set of vehicles that do either parts of that, or in some cases, all four of those things at the same time. So one of the big ones that you hear about a lot is under the umbrella of the Meyer Business on the Frontlines program. This is one of our signature experiential service learning opportunities. And there's a suite of classes that work in real time with live action partners, both domestically and internationally, in a couple of different formats. And so this is a really great way for students to be able to plug in both academically, but also in a real world scenario where they've got the ability to have impact on really challenging problems in the world today. Problems like post-conflict rehabilitation, deep poverty, illicit economies, prejudice, isolation. So some really meaty stuff. There's also a number of other opportunities that we have throughout the program that fall under the bucket of experiential learning. We have 2 7-week study programs that are off campus. So we've got one in Silicon Valley, which focuses on digital product management. So integrating with the tech industry, thinking about innovation, working on live projects with companies like Visa and Google in real time, especially for folks that are interested in the technology industry. And then we also have a 7-week study program in Santiago, Chile, which is really focused on international business and getting that perspective from, a very non-American lens, and thinking about how the world views not only, business as a whole, but the way that we think about business as well, which is a really incredible opportunity. The last format that I'll mention is a 1-week opportunity that we have called Grow Irish. And these are essentially a combination of either skill building courses or live consulting engagements that we have both domestically and internationally. And again, these can be with either for-profit organizations or nonprofit organizations. In March this year, I was very fortunate to be able to take 2 teams of students to Poland to partner with Ukrainian Catholic University to work on them on a live case so that they can serve Ukrainian refugees living in Poland more effectively. So a really unique set of opportunities for the students to get to work on something in real time that has a critical impact in the world.
Yeah, and all of this is exercising one's leadership muscles, your ability to work with others in a team and come up with novel and innovative solutions to their challenges. Now, Naz, it's often said that leaders are never made, they're born. So what is your school doing to prove that phrase wrong?
Yeah, that's, I mean, of course, that's the, we talk about EQ but I think beyond that, I really think that when we're talking about cultivating good leaders, right, there are a lot of skill sets that our students need, and it actually boils down to communication and how we can be effective and how we can teach effective communication, storytelling, business improv, how we can instill in our students how teamwork and camaraderie is paramount for success. There is no business today that operates in a silo. And that actually begins even on the admissions side, when we are starting even to have early conversations with prospective students about their candidacy for the program, we're small, and we're small by design. And so we're bringing in a very small group of individuals every year, about 50 to 60 students. And because of that, it really ensures that we're able to have high impact on our students, to really cultivate, each one of those students and how they kind of fit into the larger, MBA team and MBA family. We talk about the Gator good, and that's something that, Gators helping Gators is really critical. And I think that all of the things that we have to do, from mentorship to that personal development to the life skill development, all of these things actually are what cultivate those good leaders. So it's not something that you're necessarily born with. It's something that we can help train, but it requires a student to want to gain that training, to want to roll up their sleeves and embrace the experience. And I think more often than not, when I'm talking to recent admits, they tell me, what's a good piece of advice? And I say over and over, trust what we have to provide, both inside the classroom and beyond, because those are everything that we've done to intentionally build those, strong leadership skill sets, both soft and technical skill sets.
Trust the process, right?
The process, yes.
Absolutely. In fact, when I was at Kelley, there were many students who were kind of frustrated by one exercise that was done among the online students, because the faculty wasn't feeding the students everything that they needed at the time that they needed it, because they wanted to teach them to really absorb what the learning in a given exercise was, and not rush to a conclusion. Rebecca, what's Kelley doing to make leaders in face of that phrase, leaders are born, not made?
Right. Well, again, I think Naz hit it a lot on the head, but kind of tying to what you just said is, dealing with ambiguity. Things are not just cut and dry with very specific directions in most cases. I mean, even when you get directions with things, a lot of times they don't make sense. So it's really teaching people to figure out, how can I actually do this? How can I deal with change, or deal with uncertainty, or deal with teammates that are struggling with some of this? But that's really, really important, because that's life. I mean, I think any industry today, there's so much change happening. So they need to understand that. So teaching that, and that's hard. I mean, the students that you talk to, I'm sure, were like, we just want the answer, or we just want the details. They're like, no, not happening.
They want to get to the end real quick.
Right. So, but that's not the learning. So it would actually, at the end of that session, when I push them, I'm like, what did you learn? How can you actually take that and put it on a resume? How can you take that back to your job? But it's teaching a lot of that, but it's the communications, it's rolling up your sleeves, jumping in, trying to figure it out, but we're here to do it together. And I think all business schools, we provide the boundaries or bumpers, maybe, to test, to try, and it's okay to fail. It's okay to try things and figure out, okay, maybe I'm not good at this, or maybe I don't know this and I need to. So really helping them, whether that's an academic area or that's more of a, again, better at communications, better at presenting, whatever that is. But we really provide a lot of that information, or a lot of that training for them.
Including dealing with conflict, let's face it. Yes. I mean, in a well-functioning team, there's often people, obviously, with very different opinions on how to move forward. And it's important to figure out which way to go when you have a bunch of people with different opinions in the room. Joe, I mean, when you really isolate, what are the most important leadership qualities an MBA student really learns in a program? What are they?
Yeah, so I think Naz and Rebecca have actually hit on a couple of the most important ones already. Thinking about things like empathy, thinking about things like communication. Those are really, really essential skills. Having your core business technical skills is a really important foundation. But as you think about moving to that next level, being able to have a clear vision for the future, and then being able to not only communicate that effectively to bring folks on board, but also to have the empathy and the emotional intelligence to be able to know when those solutions are either kind of headed in the wrong direction, or whether or not you've kind of missed something along the way. Those elements will help you to make sure that you've got a really well-rounded out both organization and strategy for your organization as you move forward. So to me, those are a couple of really, really essential elements that you'll get. And every program kind of delivers that in a little bit of a different way. for us, we actually have our one-year students going through our leadership launch program right now. So they're in the building today, running through that process. And, part of the way that we think about leadership is through a framework we call tender, strong, and true. And so that's actually it's an homage to our alma mater, but thinking about it both from a standpoint of, can you be introspective? Can you be self-aware about kind of your own abilities and limitations? Can you think about those technical skills, being able to be proficient? And then, are you doing it with principle, with integrity? And then is that something that you're able to communicate effectively to your organization or your stakeholders at large?
Which leads me to another obvious question based on what you said, which is, how do you really encourage and support the development of ethical and socially responsible business practices? And I know at Notre Dame and Mendoza, this is a key element of the program.
Yeah, so I think it comes out in a lot of different ways. You've got some very obvious points as well. So, you've got courses like Foundations of Ethical Business Leadership, which is based a lot in, psychology, philosophy. We draw in some elements of theology as well. And so you can have frames like that, but it also gets integrated in a lot of the other coursework in different ways. Sometimes it can be as subtle as in an accounting class, stopping and saying, okay, technically this is how this works, but here's when you should do this and when it's not right to do this. Those kind of incorporations are really important, kind of subtle elements that come into play. And then through, again, some of the application-based courses, thinking about what are the right questions to ask? What are the problems that business can solve? What are the problems that business should solve? And then really, what's the role of business? Because at the end of the day, one of the things I always tell my students is business is a tool. And so you can use it for the good of others. You can use it for personal gain. You can use it in a way that's harmful to society at large. But at the end of the day, business itself is a tool, and how you use it matters.
Yep, really true. Naz, you have something to add on how Warrington approaches ethical decision-making?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it boils down to, giving students the framework for, ethical business decision-making skill sets. And that oftentimes, to Joe's point, just boils down to asking the right questions, but it's also having the confidence to ask the right questions. And so our courses, in addition to, our ethical leadership seminar series, things such as negotiation and really fine-tuning those persuasion skill sets so that, that coupled with, the ability to say, I have, a voice in this conversation, and I have the know-how to know what questions to ask, whether it's to, Joe's point, in an accounting course or in an operations supply chain management course, however it surfaces, we have an ongoing seminar in place to keep that conversation going. And that's actually something that we instill not even to just our currently enrolled student, regardless of their program, but it's something that we've even implemented in our recruiting efforts. So our prospective students understand that the ethical leadership is paramount to who we are, as the Warrington College of Business.
Yep. Kelley, the Kelley School. What do you say, Rebecca, on ethical behavior?
Something similar, pretty similar to both Joe and Naz, but obviously some classes specifically designed around that. But as both mentioned, it's incorporated into lots of different classes. And really, we have an integrated core for the first semester, and it's really integrated throughout all the classes and highlighted there. As well as cases, whether it's case training or case competitions in and of themselves, but really trying to bring home that there are situations where you are going to have to ask the questions, potentially make a stand, and how to do it correctly. So really providing a lot of those types of situations, also through clubs and through our academies that I mentioned. It's just really, depending on the different industries, here's some examples of things that could pop up, or what's kind of the craziest thing that you can think of, and it's probably happened.
Rebecca, when you step back from what people learn in an MBA program, you can easily come to the conclusion that it's pretty overwhelming. Mm-hmm. Besides all the disciplines in accounting, finance, marketing, operations, strategy, leadership, career development, now you have layered on top of that or embedded into it issues of diversity and inclusion, data analytics, the future of artificial intelligence, globalization, and sustainability. It makes my mind want to blow up. How do business schools do all this? Because all of this is important in developing the next generation of business leaders.
It is. Actually, when you say it that way, it does make it sound rather overwhelming. um, but I think you take it in chunks. It's you start at the beginning, you start with orientation, you start with different programming. They're beginning to really kind of ingrain it within students. All of us, we bring in students who have work experience. So they bring in experiences from their past, the years that they've done and whatever it was that they've done. So taking that experience and leveraging and say, okay, what have you struggled with before? What do you want to work on individually? But then what about as a group? How can we address the changes in AI, or how can we address the changes in the job markets, right? Right now we're all dealing with more layoffs and headlines and everything else. So how can we give you the tool sets and essentially the grit to get through it, to really help them through that process? But it's a design process. I think it's been mentioned before, trust the process, but there's a purpose to this. It changes every year though, because there's a lot of jobs today that probably didn't exist 5 years ago. And then 5 years from now, there's probably a lot of things that our students will want to go into that don't exist today. So we have to evolve along with that. But I think it's introducing topics, giving people a lot of I'll call it the basics on AI, unless that's really their area of focus, or things along the analytics side. So they understand it enough, and then they can go focus more depending on what they want to go into.
Yeah, that's really true, because after all, the MBA is a general management degree. And yes, you do specialize to some degree with your electives and choose a path, but by and large, you're getting a really big and broad overview of what it's like to be successful in business. Joe, I wonder, in terms of just developing effective career plans for the future, what does Mendoza do to make that happen for MBA students?
Yeah, so there's a couple different elements that I always think about. So one of the things we always talk with students about as they come into the program is, thinking about how all the different opportunities within the program can help you tell the story that you want to tell. Being able to have flexibility in the curriculum allows you to be able to say, hey, I was doing finance before, I'm going to add some strategy, and this is what I want to get out of it on the back end. Or, maybe I was making cupcakes before, and I'm going to be a finance major because I want to pivot into investment banking. We've had students do that before as well. So thinking a little bit forward on where you want it to take you is a really critical part of that. One of the things that we do kind of right as the students come on board is we've got 3 different tracks to a career leadership course as the students come in. So as they've kind of got that idea, we know that different companies in the industry behave in slightly different ways and have different kind of operational tempos for their hiring processes. And so, the folks coming in that are interested in consulting, probably working on a little bit of a different time frame than the folks that are coming in that are interested in technology. So being able to provide some customized content to help them kind of engage at the right time with these companies is a really kind of critical part of that. One of the other really important elements from a career development standpoint is also thinking about networking and thinking about your network. One of the things that I always tell students is, you can either spend all night doing research on the internet, or you can have a really good 30-minute phone call with somebody in industry, and you'll probably get more out of that 30-minute phone call. So being able to leverage the broader Notre Dame network, the Notre Dame MBA network, is a really critical part of thinking about how you develop your career trajectory as you go through the program from that standpoint. And then, as we go through the program here, there's really a strong kind of network of support. You've got a dedicated career coach that's industry focused. You've got academic advisors that have an industry focus. We've got, 20 or more clubs that help both from a personal development standpoint and a professional development standpoint. And so there's a lot of different layers and a lot of different touch points to be able to support students as they're going through and thinking about the career outcomes that they want to achieve.
Right. Naz, at the Warrington College of Business, I wonder if you prefer to recruit and enroll students who have a plan, who know what they want to do with the MBA, or do you prefer the explorer type?
So I think there's a place for both of those students. I think that there are definitely students that come to me that have a crystal ball and say, this is exactly what my destiny is, and we say, okay, let's talk about how we can get there, and what has your previous experiences coupled with the MBA help get you there. But I think the bigger part of that is that we prefer students to be open-minded, because oftentimes this MBA is about personal self-exploration. And so I think that when we are talking to prospects, even early on in the admissions part of the cycle, we want to understand kind of what the driving factor for why somebody's looking to get an MBA, but we don't want them to be so rigid, because at the end of the day, like I said, it's about giving yourself time to explore what type of leader, what type of industry, what type of functional area do you want to go into. And I think that that's something that we really pride ourselves on. And in fact, our career coaches, Carly Eskew, who's also been interviewed by you, John, is paramount to the actual admissions process. So in fact, even before a student has enrolled in the MBA program, even before they've gotten a letter of admission to the MBA program, they've already had a conversation about what their career goals are in the interview process with our career coach, the person that will be integral in their kind of career seeking process. And that's something that, starts kind of even as an applicant, we start having these conversations about what somebody wants to do. And that continues all the way through, to graduation and then beyond, because we want to stay connected to these students. To Joe's point, it's about making meaningful connections, and it's about building and leveraging your network in a smart way. And so I think that the career component of it starts even before somebody has stepped foot in the swamp. And that's something that we continue to cultivate throughout the duration of the program. Now, we offer a 1-year and a 2-year program. And so depending on what, that timeline for the student will also dictate how much, quick onboarding they're doing. In fact, I remember we had students that just started the first week of May, and they were already registering for, the pre-MBA poets and quants events, and so that's something that it is a, as a full-time MBA student, we expect you to give your full focus, not only in the coursework, but your full focus in cultivating what type of career you want. And so everything that we have in place, from our career curriculum to our career coaching to our speaker series, to, encouraging our students to participate in any and every career showcase and career opportunity, to get them in front of corporate recruiters, to encourage them to, attend corporate info sessions. These are all things that help, ensure that even if you have a good understanding of what you want to do after post MBA, that you feel confident at that point of graduation, when you've accepted that job offer, that you're going into exactly what it is that you want to do. So it's a little bit about both. We want some direction, but we also want flexibility to grow.
And I'm thinking, Naz, for your accelerated MBA program, you probably would want people who are pretty directed, not all, but mostly. And then for the longer, more traditional MBA that has a summer internship where people can explore options, might be better for an explorer. Am I right or wrong?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, somebody who's doing a 1-year MBA, think in either 10 or 12 months, they have to have a pretty good understanding of what it is that they want to do. So they don't necessarily have the luxury of time to figure out exactly what it is that they want to do. But that individual, usually they recognize that the underlying factor is, let's maximize the ROI here so that we can get in and get out and return back to the workforce as quickly as possible. So they typically have a good understanding of what it is that they want to do, coupled with the prior experience to help pivot or get them into those types of roles. Whereas a 2-year student, they have the benefit of that summer internship. So they have the benefit of time to really think about what it is that they want to do. But having said that, I don't want anybody who's looking at a 2-year program to sit on their laurels and think that they have time, because they basically start the interview process. Now, it's not going to be for their full-time, post-MBA job, but they're going to start the interview process for those internship opportunities very quickly, after enrolling in the program. They start in August already. In September, October is, that recruitment period. And so they too have to really think about what it is that they want to do. And the opportunity to do that summer internship really solidifies kind of either that foot in the door for them, or gives them better understanding of maybe taking their non-traditional business experience and allowing them to more efficiently, effectively pivot into those types of industries.
Yep, for sure. Now, Rebecca, we've been through a fairly uncertain time. The pandemic certainly was a big exclamation mark in the careers of many people and in the lives of many people. and if anything, proved how unpredictable and disruptive life can be. I wonder how you see technology and innovation changing the business landscape in a way, and what implications it may have for the next generation of business leaders and how you're training them.
Well, I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think, I mean, ChatGPT is already changing so many things.
Yes.
I'm not sure if it's good or bad, but depending on what results you get out of it, but or how it's being used. But I think it is changing things, and it honestly is providing a lot of I'd say ease for students in helping them explore ideas, now, again, I wouldn't recommend taking everything straight out of ChatGPT because a lot of it isn't true. But a lot of it, though, it provides a starting point. It provides the opportunity to get some information quickly, to brainstorm. So I think things like that and the iterations of that are coming forward will have a big impact. I mean, I know most academic institutions are already figuring out faculty-wise, how are they dealing with the usage of ChatGPT, by students. So that will change. Yeah, I think look at some of the iterations we've already had. We've had, now electric cars are becoming a lot more popular. So many more companies are using them. Different ways factories are doing things, shipping. I mean, obviously the pandemic disrupted everything. So now people are rethinking supply chains. And global disruptions, but how do I rethink that? How do I maybe bring it back more domestically? So there are a lot of changes happening and trends change within different industries. The tech space obviously overhired significantly, so now it's coming back. So what does that look like going forward? So I think students need to come in and actually kind of, as Naz was saying, kind of be flexible, be open to ideas, because there might be some things by the time people graduate that maybe don't exist today or just very little in nascent stages.
True.
So I don't know, but I think it's exciting. And I think there's a lot of really cool opportunities on the horizon.
And AI is certainly one of them. I mean, you see a war starting between Microsoft and Google and AI, but more importantly, you see all these startups and early stage companies exploring it, which is going to lead to a lot of job opportunities. You mentioned alternative energy, a whole other incredible field, along with sustainability, which is part of that. So there'll be no shortage of jobs for young, talented people who are developed into leaders. Joe, are you optimistic about the future for MBAs, or are you a pessimist?
I'm generally optimistic, and again, I'm happy to welcome the robot overlords when they show up. But until that time, I think there's some really powerful tools out there. I think one of the things that disruption always kind of highlights for me is that those that have kind of the longer vision, those that have kind of more of a system level approach are the ones that are going to be able to come out on top. If you're just reliant on a set of core skills, some of those base skills might be able to be replaced by an AI or something else. But if you've got the ability to think critically, to think about the way that that people interact with different things or different types of technology, then it creates those opportunities to be able to leverage them as tools as opposed to thinking about them as replacements. I think you're spot on when you're saying there's going to be more opportunities. If you think 25, 30 years ago, there's a whole set of industries that exist today that people back then wouldn't have had any comprehension of because the tools and the technologies didn't exist yet. So we may see a shift from a certain set of jobs, but there's also going to be a whole new set of jobs that are going to be coming online in the next 10, 15, 20 years as some of these things start to progress and develop. And so being able to think critically about those opportunities is a really, really critical point. I actually integrated a AI case into my wine business class this year in the context of disruption, and so required the students to use an AI in the course of the project to see kind of where it would take them and to think about how it would become a tool. And the ones that kind of steered into the AI, the hardest in terms of their engagement with the platforms were actually the ones that ended up with some of the best solutions, because then they were able to leverage the power of the large language model and apply their business skills on top of it to think about the broader industry disruption. So it's really encouraging for me to see that kind of growth and development. And yeah, to me, that makes me even more optimistic about the MBA in the long term.
Yeah. What was the essential challenge in that wine case?
Yeah, so the core question is, look, this is a capital intensive and fragmented industry. It's it's a little archaic. If you were going to use an AI to disrupt the industry, what would you disrupt and how would you do it? And so, it's kind of a basic question, but it takes folks in a lot of different directions. And this is kind of the final case after the building blocks from the rest of the course that gave them a lot of perspective on the industry itself and current trends and challenges.
Naz, have you used ChatGPT yet?
Hold on, let me see if I should use it right now. How?
It is intriguing, isn't it? I mean, I think that the way you ask the questions really determines the quality of the answer. And the more specific you are, the more shockingly good ChatGPT, particularly the upgraded version 4, can be. And so is true of Bard and these other ones. It's kind of remarkable. I mean, you're in the admissions field. How is it going to change the way you do your job? Can you trust an essay written by an applicant anymore? What do you say?
That's a great question. It's actually funny that you say this, John, because a few weeks ago, my team and I, we were all having lunch and we were kind of doing some team building. And I put into ChatGPT, explain to me the best UFM or best holistic admission process for an MBA program. And it was mind-boggling what it responded with. I was like, wow, this is so basically I printed it up and I was like, this is kind of the takeaway of what we should do on a regular basis. But I think to your point though, how has that kind of made me think about who we are interviewing and how we are doing what we do on a day-to-day basis. And actually, at the end of the day, if somebody wants to use, any of these technical tools, right, or ChatGPT to write their essays, then of course, like we don't want to see that. But where we'll come out is when we're interviewing candidates, and we interview every candidate for all of our full-time programs. So at the end of the day, you can write whatever you want in your essay or not write whatever you want in your essay and have something else write whatever you want in your essay. But at the end of the day, it's how do you present yourself in an interview? How do you keep the conversation going? How do you draw us in? Because as much as, the interview is about us getting to know the candidate, it's also for us to be able to paint the picture of why our MBA is a great place for this candidate to invest in. And it's a mutually beneficial thing. And so I think as long as we continue to instill in the process the human touch component, then whatever technology arises, we will be ready to handle that. And I think that at the end of the day, when you see so many different things, such as online chat functions or ChatGPT or whatever the case may be, at the core of it, I think people still want to connect with people.
Yep.
People still want to, and I think that's what the benefit of doing even is today, as you're watching this Poets and Quants session, right? Is you get to put, an actual face to our, and voice to our names. And I think that that's hugely beneficial. And that's not something that I think technology can replace anytime too soon.
No, I agree with you. And I've heard some of your colleagues say exactly what you said, that there may be greater reliance on the interview and slightly discounting the weight applied to essays and maybe, progress in the job, your promotions and your extracurricular activities, things like that may get weighted a little bit more to offset the possibility of people using ChatGPT for an essay. Although, for a first draft, it's pretty darn good, I got to say. So, okay, so Naz, let's stay with you and let me ask you this. People go into MBA programs generally with the view to come out with a job in a particular area. And yeah, sure, there are explorers like we talked about before, but some people may want to be a consultant, or they may want to upgrade their second tier firm. They want to go to first tier school, first tier consulting firm, or they may want to switch from marketing to finance or vice versa, or whatever. But I think they rarely think about, wait, I'm going to business school to develop my ability to be a true leader. You think that's right? And if that attitude is right, should it change?
That's a great question. I think that, and I don't want to make it a generalization here, but a lot of our students, we've historically thought about an MBA as a golden ticket to a career outcome. And I think that in some regards, I don't envy, career coaches today because, they are kind of faced with that burden of the expectation of having a student come in and say, well, I am doing this because I want X, Y, Z. And how do you deliver that? And so actually, I think that for us, even on the admission side of it, it really is important that if we have a strong team of individuals that we all can answer the why we are offering this MBA and what format we're offering and how and why it is that we offer all of the different facets and pieces to this MBA experience, then hopefully, ingrained in everything that we say and do with regards to Warrington's MBA program, that people understand that it's not about just the end goal. It's not just about the job. It's cultivating who you are. And I think that is something that I continue to hear from our graduates. It's not about, 20 years from now, they're not going to, have the still same usage of let's say their basics of accounting that they did when they were going through the MBA program, right? But what they're going to have is the network and the skill set and the confidence to make these decisions, right? These business decisions and being able to do it in a persuasive manner. And so that's something that we've really tried to focus on, even, on the prospecting stage, is change your mind, change your thought. Don't think of it so much as an end goal of this is why I'm doing an MBA, just to get into this job. Think of it as the journey. And it's that journey that really cultivates the experience and makes it a rich one. And I think that's something that all three of us, on the panel today, what we're here to talk about. It's not just the courses, it's everything in addition to the courses that make for, this MBA experience.
Yeah, well said. Joe, what is Mendoza doing to make sure that its graduates are not replaced by an algorithm in the future?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that goes hand in hand with technology innovating is for education to also innovate, right? And so if you look at the courses that we offer today, they're very different than the courses that were offered when I went through the MBA program. In a lot of ways, I'm super jealous of our students from that standpoint because they get to have way cooler experiences than I got to when I was going through the program. I had a great time. I learned a lot, but being able to constantly reinvent ourselves, I think, is a really critical point from an industry standpoint. So it's not that the world's changing around us and we're still pounding the table on the same set of things. We're also taking the ability to innovate, to create new coursework, to create new opportunities for students, and to kind of tie it back to what we were talking about at the very top. Being able to really develop a lot of those experiential learning opportunities creates the opportunity for students to engage in a lot of those questions in real time because they get to talk to folks that are in industry. They get to work actively with the technologies that are being developed and implemented from that standpoint. So I think being able to continue to be flexible, to innovate, to push the boundaries, to reimagine the way that we think about graduate business education is a really critical component for us as a business school to be able to make sure that we're continuing to deliver that value to the student so that they can gain not only those core business skills around finance and accounting, but be able to apply those business skills into modern industry today.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head because I really think that one of the reasons why I'm such a believer in business education is because it does evolve and it does respond to the needs of business, unlike many other schools in the academy. So when schools place more data analytical programming in their curricula, it's because employers are saying, we need this. We need your graduates to be smart about how we can use this overwhelming amount of data and harness it into effective decision-making. And when you pour on sustainability elements in a program, it's often because companies are saying this is going to be a major problem. It's a future growth opportunity. We need graduates who are knowledgeable about how businesses can respond to this great societal challenge. So, Rebecca, let me ask you the question that I asked Joe. How do we make sure that MBAs in the future from Kelley not merely use ChatGPT as a tool for them to succeed, but make sure that ChatGPT doesn't replace the work that they will do.
I think, and Joe hit on a lot of wonderful points, but it really is, we bring in the human aspect of it. Technology is going to be there. AI is going to take over a lot of the things that historically people have done, and that's okay. It's more of how can we bring in that strategic thinking? How can we bring in that communications? How can we bring in those connections and that network? And how, so making sure that we're providing our students with a lot of those skills. Those can't, or well, I can't say can't. At the moment, they cannot be replicated into AI. Who knows? But but it really is those skill sets, because it's the AI will make things easier and may make things faster for a lot of jobs. So how do we then teach our students to take whatever that output is and make it even better? Or how can we teach them to take it and really implement really cool things at whatever company they work at? So it's a lot of, it's the soft skills. It really is the leadership, those soft skills that make the difference historically, and probably even more so going forward.
Okay, Rebecca, last question, and we'll cycle it through. This session is about developing the next generation of business leaders, and I wonder what advice you would have for an incoming MBA student to make the best of the experience so that, in fact, they are moving toward their development as a true business leader.
Being open would probably be my top advice. Of people come in with a plan, like we've talked about. In some cases, some don't, and they know they have a major that they want to focus on, but being open to new opportunities, being willing to explore, test themselves, fail, take on things that they don't understand, because that's all what's going to help them grow. And we've talked about it before, trusting the process, right? We all have there's reason for why we do what we do. So our goal is to help those students be successful. So really, again, providing all the underlying tools that are there and taking advantage of them.
Yep. Joe, your advice?
Yeah, I would echo that. And I would say two pieces of advice. One, pick your spots. I mean, there's so many incredible opportunities in programs like this. You can't do everything, even in the course of 2 years, you're not going to be able to do absolutely everything. So think about, what's going to be most impactful for you, and what are the areas that you want to have impact in your experience. And then the other thing that I think is really critical is form relationships. Think about this as a relationship building opportunity, both for your classmates, for, the faculty and staff at the school that you attend, and for, folks that are in industry. You've got one of the best opening lines to go and talk to anybody. Hey, I'm a student. People love to talk to students. So go talk to people, make relationships, don't have everything be transactional. Just go to learn and to listen. And if you're open that way, it'll help to create a lot of lasting connections that will carry you, very far in your career as you move on.
Okay, so Naz, you accepted me as a student. Now I'm coming to you. It's my first day on campus. Naz, what's your best advice to make sure that I get out of this program and I'm a true business leader?
Give this experience a massive bear hug and just embrace it and be excited about it, and recognize, to Joe's point, to Rebecca's point, you're not going to be able to do everything, but trust the process and really have fun. Right? This is about your growth. You're investing in yourself. You've made that first step to come to campus. You're making that investment in yourself. Let us help you make that investment to maximize that return on investment that you're going to see for years and years to come.
Naz, I'm going to have a lot of fun in your program.
Yay! Welcome to the swamp.
All right. Hey, thank you so much. I think we covered a lot of ground. Really appreciate all of you being here. And I'm sure our audience really learned a lot as well. If you want to develop into a business leader, here are 3 great options for you. The Warrington College of Business at the University of Florida, Notre Dame's Mendoza College of Business, and the Kelley School of Business at Indiana University. 3 great places where you get lots of individualized attention. You will get the bear hug at all 3 schools. And you will have your hand held through the more difficult moments, and you will develop the skills and tools to make you a successful leader in the future. So Naz, Joe, and Rebecca, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And for all of you out there, thanks for watching.